Underneath a blood-red sunset, Amina knelt by the river's edge, her heart pounding with excitement. In the damp sand, a ring glimmered, its design drawing her in. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. It felt strangely warm, pulsing with an energy she couldn't explain. Curiosity piqued. Amina slipped the ring onto her finger. Instantly, a searing heat shot through her hand. The ring glowed, its light reflecting in her wide eyes. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and a prickling sensation spread through her body. Panic rising, Amina tried to pull the ring off. It wouldn't budge. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The ring seemed to tighten around her finger, its grip like a vice. She twisted and tugged, but it remained stubbornly in place. A sense of dread settled over her, a chilling premonition that this was no ordinary piece of jewelry. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the riverbank. Amina's heart hammered against her ribs. She had to get this ring off, had to break free from it. But as darkness fell, the ring only glowed brighter. Amina's finger was trapped. As darkness enveloped the jungle, Amina stumbled back towards the village, her hand clenched tightly around the glowing ring. Fear bit at her gut. She knew it was forbidden to touch anything from the river's edge. Yet the ring had called to her, with its allure irresistible. At home, Amina's mother noticed her daughter's distraction. "Amina, are you well?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Yes, mother," Amina lied, hiding her hand behind her back. "Just tired from the day's work." The ring's heat pulsed against her skin, a constant reminder of her disobedience. Each attempt to remove it ended in frustration. The metal fused to her finger as if it were a part of her. That night, as she fell asleep, Amina's dreams took on a vivid new life. She found herself in a lush, moonlit landscape where a tranquil river flowed through fields of wildflowers. And there, waiting for her, was a boy with eyes like starlight and a smile that warmed her soul. "Welcome, Amina," he said with a smooth voice. "I am Kato." As he stepped closer, the moonlight illuminated his features, and Amina felt her breath catch in her throat. Kato was unlike any man she had ever seen in her village. He stood tall and lithe, his movements fluid and graceful like a jungle cat. His skin was a rich, deep brown that seemed to glow with an inner light. He wore clothing that shimmered and shifted like the surface of the river, making it hard for Amina to focus on any one detail. A pendant hung from his neck, a strange symbol that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. Kato reached out a hand to her. "Come," he said, his voice a melodious invitation. "Let me show you around." Fear bit at Amina's gut, a primal warning of the unknown, but curiosity and an inexplicable attraction pulled her forward. She placed her hand in his, gasping at the warmth that spread through her at his touch. Little did she know that this moment would change the course of her life forever. As the nights passed, Amina found herself torn between two worlds. In her waking hours, she went about her chores, but her mind was always on her nightly encounters with Kato. In the dream world, they explored hidden grottos, bathed in moonlit waterfalls, and danced beneath the stars. They would spend hours together, laughing and talking as if they'd known each other a lifetime. She loved Kato, and in his presence, she felt a sense of belonging she'd never known before. But with each dawn, she would awaken with a lingering warmth and a bittersweet ache in her heart. Kato was a dream, a figment of her imagination, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow real. One night, as the fireflies twinkled around them, Kato knelt on one knee, his eyes sparkling with love. "Amina," he murmured, "will you be my wife?" Tears welled up in Amina's eyes as she nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Kato, 1,000 times yes." In a dream ceremony, they exchanged vows. Amina felt a sense of completeness, a wholeness she hadn't realized she was missing. But as she drifted off to sleep each night, a nagging doubt crept into her mind. Could a love born in dreams truly be real? The moons continued their celestial dance, and a new mystery began to unfold in Amina's waking life. Her belly, once flat, began to swell with a life of its own. Fear gnawed at her, her mind racing with questions. She hadn't been with any man in the village, yet the evidence of her growing body was undeniable. Soon her parents noticed the change, their eyes filled with worry and suspicion. "Amina," her father asked, his voice stern, "what have you done?" Amina shook her head, her cheeks flushed with shame and confusion. "Nothing, father." "Amina," her mother asked gently, "have you been seeing someone? You can tell us the truth." Amina shook her head once again. "No, mother. I swear it." But her denial did little to quell the whispers that swirled around the village. The elders muttered about curses and dark magic, as nobody had ever seen her with a man in the village. The young women gossiped about secret lovers. Amina's once bright reputation was tarnished, her name whispered in hushed tones. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Amina's mother took her hand and led her to the edge of the village. There, in a small hut shrouded in shadow, lived the old woman, a seer known for her wisdom and connection to the spirit world. Amina's heart hammered against her ribs as she stepped inside the dimly lit hut. The air hung heavy with the scent of herbs and incense. The old woman, her face etched with wrinkles and her eyes bright with knowledge, beckoned Amina closer. "Come, child," she rasped, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "Let me see what troubles you." The old woman looked intently at Amina, her eyes narrowing as she studied the young woman's face. "Before I touch your daughter," the old woman rasped, her voice heavy with warning, "you must know that I can only answer 2 questions. Choose wisely." Amina's mother, her voice trembling with worry, asked the first of her precious 2 questions. "Has my daughter been with a man in this village?" The old woman shook her head, her gaze unwavering. "No," she rasped, her voice heavy with certainty. "Your daughter has never been with any man in this village." A wave of relief washed over Amina's mother, but it was quickly replaced by a deeper fear. She hesitated, then asked her second question. "Is my daughter sick?" The old woman's expression remained unchanged. "No, she is not sick," she replied, her words cryptic and unsettling. Amina's mother sighed, a heavy weight settling upon her shoulders. It seemed the old woman's wisdom offered little solace. As they prepared to leave, the old woman's eyes fell upon the glowing ring on Amina's finger. "That ring," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. "It does not belong here." Amina recoiled, her heart pounding. I found it by the river," she stammered. The old woman leaned forward, her eyes boring into Amina's soul. "Remove it, child," she whispered. "Your dreams will change, and all will be as it was before." Amina shook her head, her voice thick with frustration. "I've tried, but it won't come off." A flicker of surprise crossed the old woman's face. "I have the power to remove it," she said, her voice low and measured. "But only if you ask." Amina hesitated, torn between her fear of the unknown and her desperate desire to return to normalcy. Suddenly, a wave of understanding washed over Amina. The dreams, her swelling belly, Kato. It all started the day she found the ring. How could she have been so blind? Fear bit at her gut as the full implications of her discovery sank in. "The ring," Amina whispered, her voice trembling. "It's the reason for everything, isn't it? The dreams, Kato, my condition." She placed a protective hand over her swollen belly. I don't know," she whispered, her eyes pleading for guidance. The old woman's voice was firm, unwavering. "Remove the ring, child," she insisted. "Your troubles stem from its power. Rid yourself of it, and your dreams will return to normal. Your life will regain its balance." Amina, torn between her fear and the allure of the ring, hesitated. "But it won't come off." She stared at the ring, its soft glow now seeming more sinister than beautiful. She knew she should ask the old woman to remove it immediately, to end this supernatural pregnancy and sever her connection to Kato. But a part of her, a part she didn't fully understand, hesitated. What if removing the ring meant losing Kato forever? The old woman's eyes softened. "I give you 2 days to decide. If you wish for me to remove it, return to me. But know this, child, the choice is yours alone." As they made their way back to their hut, Amina's mother exploded. "You picked up a cursed jewel from the riverside!" she screamed. "After all the warnings, you disobeyed, and now you hesitate to remove it?" Tears streamed down Amina's face as she faced her mother's anger. "I've tried, Mother," she sobbed. "It won't come off." The warnings about the ring were constantly in her thoughts, but so did the memories of her nights with Kato. As she lay down to sleep that night, a mix of anticipation and dread filled her heart. In her dream, she found herself once again in the lush, moonlit landscape. But something felt different. The air was heavy, charged with an unfamiliar tension. Kato appeared before her, his eyes no longer warm and inviting, but cold and filled with fury. "Why do you want to abandon me?" he demanded, holding her hand firmly. "Don't you realize what we have?" Amina's heart raced, a chill running down her spine. How could he know about her visit to the old woman? How could he be aware of what was happening in her waking life? A wave of worry washed over her as she realized the extent of Kato's power and knowledge. I don't understand," Amina stammered, taking a step back. "How do you know about that?" Kato's eyes flashed dangerously. "I know everything about you, Amina. I am a part of you now." His voice softened, becoming alluring once more. "You could have everything you desire: wealth, power, love. All you have to do is keep the ring." He gestured, and suddenly they were standing in a shimmering marketplace. Merchants displayed dazzling treasures, glittering jewels, flowing silks, and exotic perfumes. The abundance was overwhelming, far beyond anything Amina had ever seen in her village. "Choose," Kato urged, his voice a seductive whisper. "Anything you want, my love." With trembling hands, she began to select gifts: a necklace of shimmering pearls for her mother, fragrant oils, and soft fabrics for herself. As she chose each item, Kato's smile grew wider, more triumphant. "See," he purred, "this is the life I can give you. Why would you ever want to leave me?" Amina awoke with a start, the morning sun streaming through her window. To her astonishment, the gifts she had chosen in her dream lay scattered across her room. The pearl necklace gleamed in the sunlight, and the scent of exotic oils filled the air. For a moment, Amina couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. It had to be another dream. But the solid reality of the objects before her denied any possibility of illusion. Suddenly, the full weight of what she was seeing hit her. A scream tore from her throat, raw and terrified. "No, no, no!" she cried, scrambling back against her sleeping mat, trying to put as much distance between herself and the otherworldly gifts as possible. Her parents, alarmed by her scream, rushed into the room. They burst through the door, eyes wide with concern. "Amina, what's wrong?" her mother gasped, then stopped short as she saw the pile of luxurious items strewn across the floor. "Where did these come from?" she gasped, a mixture of awe and apprehension in her voice. Amina's father pushed past, his protective instinct giving way to confusion as he took in the scene. "Amina," he asked, his voice barely a whisper, "where did you get these?" His brow furrowed. Amina's silence hung heavy in the air, her eyes darting between her parents' astonished faces. She swallowed, her throat dry. I don't know," she finally confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Her father exchanged a worried glance with her mother. "Amina," he said, his voice stern yet gentle. "You must tell us the truth. Where did these gifts come from?" Amina hesitated, unsure how to explain the fantastical origins of her newfound wealth. I received them in a dream," she finally admitted, while crying. Her parents exchanged looks. Amina's father, a pragmatic man, scoffed. "Dreams don't bring gifts, Amina. Someone must have given these to you." But Amina's mother, her mind more open to the mysteries of the spirit world, wasn't so quick to dismiss her daughter's words. "Tell us about this dream, Amina," she urged. And so, Amina recounted her nightly encounters with Kato, the dream marriage, and the promise of riches in exchange for keeping the ring. Her parents listened with a mixture of fascination and concern, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their daughter was entangled in something far beyond their understanding. The glowing ring on Amina's finger seemed to pulse with a newfound intensity, as if responding to her confession. The weight of its power, the secrets it held, pressed down on her with renewed force. Amina knew she had a decision to make. Would she choose the tangible rewards offered by Kato, the promise of a life filled with material wealth and comfort? Or would she heed the old woman's warning, renounce the ring, and risk losing the love she had found in her dreams? Amina's father, his eyes lingering on the shimmering jewels and luxurious fabrics, finally broke the silence. "Did you not bring anything for me, my daughter?" he asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and eagerness. Amina's heart skipped a beat. I can ask," she stammered, unsure of the extent of Kato's generosity. Her father's eyes lit up. "Perhaps some cows or chickens? Useni, our neighbor, has amassed such wealth. It's time our family prospered as well." Amina's mother, though initially hesitant, was also captivated by the display of riches. "But how can we explain all this to the villagers?" she worried. "They know we are not wealthy." Amina's father waved away her concerns. "We'll say it's a blessing from our ancestors," he declared, his voice filled with newfound confidence. "A reward for our devotion." Amina's mother remained skeptical, but the allure of a better life, of finally having enough to eat and a roof that didn't leak, was too tempting to resist. She exchanged a look with Amina, a silent agreement passing between them. That night, Amina returned to the dream world, her heart heavy with the burden of her family's desires. Kato, ever perceptive, sensed her unease. "What troubles you, my love?" he asked, his voice dripping with concern. Amina hesitated, then confessed her father's wish for livestock. Kato smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "Your wishes are my command," he said, his voice filled with a power that sent shivers down Amina's spine. The following morning, Amina awoke to the sound of her father's excited shouts. Rushing outside, she found her family gawking at a sight that made her heart leap to her throat. A small herd of cattle grazed contentedly in the yard, their sleek coats gleaming in the morning light. Beside them, a flock of plump chickens clucked and pecked at the ground. Amina's father beamed, his chest puffed out with pride. "Just as you promised, my daughter," he exclaimed, embracing her tightly. "We are blessed indeed," Amina's mother, though still cautious, couldn't help but smile at the sight of their newfound wealth. The villagers, drawn by the commotion, gathered around, their eyes wide with envy and disbelief. Amina's family basked in the attention, their humble hut transformed into a haven of abundance. Amina's father spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. "These gifts, they are beyond anything our village has ever seen. Perhaps this spirit husband of yours could bring more." "Father," Amina gasped, shocked by his reaction. But her mother nodded slowly. "Think of what this could mean for our family, Amina. For the entire village." Amina's heart sank as she realized her parents were being seduced. But the old woman said, "The old woman doesn't understand the opportunity we have been given," her father interrupted. "This could change everything for us." But as the days turned into weeks, a growing unease settled over Amina. The ring's power, while fulfilling her family's desires, also seemed to be twisting their hearts. Her father, once a content farmer, grew increasingly greedy, his every waking moment consumed by schemes to acquire more land and livestock. Her mother, though grateful for the comforts the ring provided, became increasingly obsessed with appearances, her conversations revolving around the latest fashions and gossip. Kato's once warm gaze replaced by a cold, calculating stare. The dream landscape, once a haven of peace and joy, now felt oppressive and suffocating. Each night, she returned to Kato, her voice trembling as she relayed her parents' growing list of demands. Kato, once gentle and loving, now wore a mask of entitlement. His smiles were sharp, his eyes cold as he granted every request. Amina's belly continued to swell at an alarming rate. She grew weak and nauseous, plagued by nightmares of Kato's twisted visage. When she confided in her parents, they brushed off her concerns. "Just take a nap, dear," her mother would say, patting her hand. "Perhaps you can ask for some oils in your dreams." Her father, blinded by greed, urged her to rest so she could return to Kato and request even more. Amina's heart sank with each passing day, trapped in a cycle of fear and desperation. She began to dread the nights, the inevitability of facing Kato's growing darkness. In a desperate attempt to break free, Amina tried to resist sleep. She stayed awake for days on end, her body fueled by adrenaline and fear. But the exhaustion eventually caught up with her. One afternoon, as the sun beat down on the village, Amina collapsed in the marketplace. Her parents rushed to her side, their faces etched with panic. The villagers gathered around, their whispers a chorus of alarm. Amina's once vibrant spirit seemed to have withered, her eyes dull and lifeless. "Amina! Amina! Wake up!" her mother cried, cradling her daughter's head. But Amina couldn't hear her mother's pleas. In the dream world, she found herself in a dark, cavernous chamber. Gone were the lush landscapes and shimmering palaces. Cold stone surrounded her, and the air was thick with an otherworldly mist. Kato emerged from the shadows, but he was no longer the charming young man she had fallen in love with. His eyes glowed with an eerie light, and his smile was cruel and triumphant. "Welcome to your new home, my dear Amina," he said, his voice echoing unnaturally in the chamber. Amina tried to back away, but found her wrists and ankles bound by chains that glowed with the same light as her ring. "What's happening? Let me go!" she cried, struggling against her bonds. Kato laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down her spine. "Oh, Amina, you're not going anywhere. You chose this when you put on my ring. Your time in the human world is over." In the waking world, Amina's body lay still and cold. The village healer hovered over her, her face grave as she checked for signs of life. "Her breath is so faint," the healer murmured. "It's as if her spirit is no longer here." In the dream world, Amina felt a tugging sensation, as if something was trying to pull her back. But the chains held firm, and Kato's power seemed to grow stronger. "Your family is trying to wake you," he sneered. "How pitiful. Don't they realize you belong to me now? Soon, our child will be born, and your ties to the human world will be severed forever." Amina's eyes widened in horror as she felt movement in her swollen belly. The child within her was growing at an impossible rate, feeding off the energy of this spirit realm. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, I want to go home." But Kato only smiled wider. "This is your home now, Amina, forever." In the village, Amina's parents exchanged desperate looks as their daughter remained unresponsive. The healer shook her head solemnly. "I've done all I can," she said softly. "But this is beyond my skills. The spirit world has claimed her." "It is too late." Amina's father collapsed to his knees, his face etched with despair. But Amina's mother, her eyes blazing with a fierce, desperate hope, refused to accept this verdict. "No," she said, her voice quivering but determined. "This cannot be the end. Not for our only child." She turned to her husband, gripping his shoulders with trembling hands. "We must take her to the old woman," she insisted. "She warned us about the ring. She might be our only hope now." Amina's father looked up, a glimmer of hope piercing through his grief. He nodded, new strength flowing into his limbs. "Yes," he agreed, rising to his feet. "The old woman must know a way." Without wasting another moment, they gathered Amina's limp form into their arms. The village watched in hushed silence as the parents, driven by love and desperation, carried their daughter through the winding paths towards the old woman's hut. Time seemed to stretch as they walked, each step a battle against despair. But they pressed on, clinging to the slim hope that the old woman's wisdom might yet save their child. The seer's face was grim as she listened to their pleas. "Amina now resides with her husband in his realm," she explained. "She is not happy there, but she is bound by the ring. She will give birth soon. If the child is born in the spirit world, she will be lost to us forever." A glimmer of hope flickered in the parents' eyes. "Can you bring her back?" Amina's father begged, his voice raspy with desperation. The old woman nodded slowly. "It is possible, but it will come at a great cost. Everything the spirit husband has given you must be returned. Nothing can remain. Not a single jewel, not a scrap of cloth, not even an egg. If even one item remains, Amina will be forever trapped. Amina's parents, their love for their daughter outweighing any material possessions, agreed without hesitation. The old woman began the ritual, her chants filling the air with a mystical energy. The villagers watched in hushed silence as the treasures Amina had brought from her dreams vanished one by one, returning to the spirit world. When the ritual was complete, Amina's body stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding her gaze. She looked around, her eyes taking in the familiar faces of her parents and the worried expressions of the villagers. The old woman stepped forward, her hand outstretched. "Amina," she said softly, "the ring still binds you. You must choose. Will you keep it, or will you let me remove it?" Amina gazed at the ring, its once alluring glow now a chilling reminder of the darkness she had faced. She reached out, her fingers trembling as she touched the cold metal. With a deep breath, she made her decision. With a shaking hand, Amina held out her finger, the ring glowing ominously against her skin. "Remove it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I choose to be free." The old woman nodded solemnly and began to chant, her voice a low, steady rhythm that filled the hut with a mystical energy. A blinding light enveloped Amina's hand as the ring loosened its grip. With a final surge of power, it slipped off her finger and clattered to the floor, its glow extinguished. A wave of relief washed over Amina, a sense of peace replacing the fear and turmoil that had plagued her for so long. As the days passed, her body slowly returned to its normal state, the unnatural swelling receding like a tide. In the days that followed, Amina's strength slowly returned. As she recovered, the full weight of her ordeal settled upon her. The village elders gathered to hear her tale, their faces grave as she recounted her experiences. When she finished, the oldest among them spoke, his voice heavy with wisdom. "Amina, you have been given a second chance. But remember, this all began because you ignored our warnings and took something from the riverbank." Amina bowed her head, shame coloring her cheeks. "You're right," she admitted. "I let my curiosity overcome my judgment. I thought the rules didn't apply to me." Her father, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "We all bear some blame," he said. "We were blinded by greed, forgetting the wisdom of our ancestors." The old woman nodded sagely. "The spirits of the river are powerful and often deceiving. This is why we have rules, why we pass down warnings through generations, not to limit you, but to protect you." Amina looked up, meeting the eyes of her community. "I understand now," she said, her voice firm with newfound maturity. "And I swear, I will never again ignore the wisdom of our elders." As life in the village slowly returned to normal, Amina never forgot the price of her disobedience, nor the love that had saved her. She lived her life with gratitude and wisdom, always mindful of the fine line between the seen and unseen worlds. Yet, even as peace settled over the village, a sense of unease lingered. For the ring, that small circle of metal that had nearly claimed Amina's life and soul, had been returned to the riverbank as the old woman instructed. There it lay, its sinister glow dimmed but not extinguished, half buried in the silt and sand awaiting for its next victim.